Okay, let's go through the SEO Optima. We're going to go through sections of the report so you have a good understanding of what each section means. And because I love the animals, I'm going to use World Wildlife Fund for Nature, WWF.org, and the UK version. Let's hit the audit section. And this will run quite quickly. So that's a good sign, actually, when it runs quite quickly with the website. It means there's normally not performance issues or there's no technical problems. This one has quite a good rating with A, but you could actually go up to A++. And it also, even though it's got an A rating, there's still potential areas of improvement that could get you going up that Google ranking quite quickly. So let's have a look and see what areas could be improved and also what areas they want to keep. As before, it's broken into sections. So you have on-page SEO, links, usability, performance, and socials. So socials, different social websites connected to your website. Performance, that's typically how fast it runs. Usability, that's whether it displays nicely on mobile devices or tablets. Links, what other websites might link to yours, as well as internal links, so other companies promoting your website. And on-page SEO, which we're going to go through today, is what you can do on the website content, so things like your keywords, so how people search for you, as well as how you can optimize the page. And what I mean by optimize the page, within your web content management systems, there's different tweaks that you can make to assure that you're going up those Google rankings. So let's have a look. And these are the recommendations. I typically will go through each section anyway, so we can see what the recommendations could be. This has an A+, so they are doing well, but believe me, there will be sections for improvements. And I'm going to go through and explain, even when there's ticks, which means they are doing well, what they are actually doing well at. And the title tag. Now, a title tag is what you need on every single page of your website. Always have this. The reason being is this is what Google uses to search for you. Now, because this is the home page, their title tag is World Wide Fund for Nature, WWF. Now, it's a length of 32 characters, which is great because Google also requires you to have your character length between 10, so it can't be empty, up to 70. And the reason why 70 is the cutoff is anything after that, they actually either don't read it or truncate it, that your title no longer makes sense. So always try and ensure you're under the 70 characters. So when anyone searches for Worldwide Fund for Nature, they should find this website because Google's indexed it correctly. Then meta description tag. This is what the services are. So you can also put this on each page, and it is, again, going to help you go up those Google page rankings. So I would do. But think of this as a description. So think of the title tag a bit like the title page. And the meta description is a high-level explanation of what that page is trying to say, or the services you're trying to get across for that page. So because it's the home page, it'll be related to their services. So Worldwide Fund is the world's leading independent conservation organisation to ensure that people and nature can thrive together for generations to come. Lovely statement. And again, they've got between the character length constraints, so 70 minimum. The reason why that's gone up as a minimum is because it's a description of the services or what that page is trying to say or you're trying to say on that page. Up to 160, because over 160, they potentially won't, they'll stop searching. And again, they'll either cut it off or they'll truncate it. So they have a length of 143, so that's fantastic. One thing I might improve in this, if it was me, this sounds like a value statement, which is wonderful. We ensure that people and nature can thrive together for generations to come. If my homepage didn't talk like this or have these within its comments or on the words within that homepage, I might change it to be something more like what the actual page is saying. The reason being is your meta description, Google likes if your meta description matches up with the content of the page. So say if they don't actually have that on their homepage, they might want to change it. Maybe they have something like looking after animals or, ensuring animal welfare. And I would change the meta description to be a representation at a high level of what my page is, because that will make sure Google goes, oh, I like you. You can go up the rankings a bit more because you are matching what you say. The description matches the copy of your content. So remember that description matches the copy of the content. It's like a high level synopsis, like a high level synopsis of a book. Your SERP snippet. Now, this won't always display, but this will be a mix of your title and it will be a mix of the meta description tag. This is the human view of what they will see. Now, the snippet and the display won't always look like this, but they will see the information when on Google search. Your href, this is your language. They don't actually have this here. And the reason why there's question marks, can you see up here? It has .uk. They've got their country in their domain name, but say if they were WWF.org and they had for Spanish and they had for English, they would want to set their primary languages of that page, and they'd want to tell Google what that page or that language was. And the reason why you do it, so if you have multiple different versions, is you want to tell the language to Google so it doesn't think that you're just duplicating copy of different pages. And the reason why you don't want it to look like you're duplicating copy of different pages is because Google goes, hang on, you're not saying anything unique. Very naughty you. You now go down the rankings. It doesn't like you duplicating copy. It likes you saying things that are unique and can be tweaked and updated, but not duplicated. So this is where you'd go to your techie. Guess what? If I have multiple different languages, make sure that you have language settings in there. And they should do that and know that anyway. But if you don't know a techie to be able to do that, in your web content management system, there will also be language settings on there on the page, and it should be quite easy to change it. Right, then the H1, these are your header ones, right? So you get H1 through to H6. Now, your header ones, you would want on every single page. This is what the human sees. It's your header of the page. So it's your title of the page, but the human one. And you want it on there. And I would have, especially for my page, it's a description of what the page is at a title level, what the human sees. So you could have something, I talk about digital transformation services, for example. So maybe I'll start off with what is digital transformation? Now, I've now kind of interjected probably one of what my keywords are. Keywords are what people search for. And each page that I have on my website, I would want a header one because that's what the human sees and it helps it connect to the keyword. And again, it's going to help you in the Google search rankings and go up. I'm going to put these connections in the notes as well so you easily have them as a reference. Your H2 and your H6s, these are less important than the header ones. However, they are good also as well, not just to, a lot of the time we use them as visual markers like changing of fonts, colors and styles. And we can do that all within the web content management system. It's a way of visually segregating the content of your website page. So think of like a page in a book where you have different chapters and then different sections of those chapters. This is what your different H2, H3 and different headers enable you to visually identify, but they're also a marker for Google. So it's a good place for Google to go, oh, that must be important. What does that mean? What are they talking about? And that's them helping them identify what your core services are or what you're talking an authority of, that it helps them identify some key keywords that you have. So if you talk about something and put it in your titles as a description, that typically means it's something that Google thinks people want to search for as well. Okay, because you're talking about it and it's going, oh, that's how they talk about it. So this is how people will search for it in keywords. I think I might do a nice map or connection on this in terms of my handouts, just because that connection can come across as a little bit confusing. Keyword consistency. So remember, you're going to have your H1s, which is your headers, and you're going to have your H2s, 3s, etc. So your header ones, you'll probably always want to make sure that there's ideally some kind of keyword connection there. And I'm actually going to do another course about keywords itself, because SEO is a whole strategy of different things. You've got your SEO audit report, which is your foundation, the home, your keywords that people search for and how they search for it, and then content that connects to those keywords. So I'm probably going to do a whole course on this now. Well, whole program of different courses, shall I say. Now, the SEO Optima does a keyword check of your pages. So think of this as your as-is, like your audio report of your current website. And it does two different things. It looks at singular words, and it looks at phrases. Now, it's purely taking your current content as it is now. It's not thinking how other people might search for you. It's just thinking about the words you've used in your copy of your website. So how you use your phrasing and what you do. This is extremely useful when you do need to come up with a keyword strategy. Individual keywords, they have a lot here, but you know what? This is quite confusing. I would focus on individual keywords that represent my brand, or if I have a brand name. The reason being is, can you imagine, world might relate to loads of different things. Top might relate to someone purchasing a top. Tips could relate to, can I have tips for anything? So for me, there's limited value in these singular words at the moment. But what they are trying to show you, and World Wildlife Fund, World might be a good one, but I wouldn't have, and Wildlife is a good one, I would say, because that's part of their brand name. What it's trying to tell you is these words, when I've gone through the website and the copy, these are the amount of times that they show. And as you can see, it's in order. And these are the areas it shows across. So you get a nice tick because it's on the title of the page. This is Google's know and how they find it. It's in the meta description, so the services, so world is in the description of that page, and it's in headers, so the human element of what they can see on that page. So they got a nice tick on that one, and I'd expect that. I would want these individual words to relate to my core services maybe. So for me, example, it's like digital transformation. I'd want digital and probably transformation up there. And my brand name. So mine's Edwards Inspire. So I might want Edwards and Inspire on there. But anything over that, it's quite hard on individual keywords because they make limited sense, because these keywords could relate to any area or any other type of business. Phrases, though, become a bit more interesting. And the reason why you want phrases, I use mine, for example. I'm not meaning just to interject. It's just a bit easier sometimes. I focus on digital transformation. So I'd probably want digital transformation here. But with WWF, you know what? They've got World Black Help. I would love something like World Wildlife Fund. That would be a nice one up here. Or Help Animals or Save Animals. Help Protect's actually quite good. You would want things that they relate to, and you want their copy to actually say, because this is probably what people will search on. I don't think people will search on something like top tips. I don't think people will search on Acceptor. However, they've written copy that these are the primary keywords that they're using within their content copy. This is a good starter to help, especially if you are working with clients, to go, you know what, we need to look at how you write your copy. This is a big, excuse me, though the structure's there, they are not writing copy in how people search for the website. This is because there's so many X's here, and these words to me do not relate or correlate to how someone might search for their website. This to me would be going, you know what, guys, we really need to look at how you write your content, because it doesn't resonate with how people search for you. Because it's a World Wildlife Fund, I would want more things like, you know, helping animals, helping the environment. It wouldn't necessarily be like these. Look, all cookies. Just doesn't match up. But what they're trying to tell you in the audit report is, does it appear in the title again? So that's the web page title that Google looks for, so the search engines. Is it in the meta description? So a description of that service. Again, what Google uses to search for it is a bit more of a synopsis of that particular page. The header, in this case, Top Tips does. So header tags, that's the human visual element of what's on the page. So think of it like a title on a page, but what a human sees. I know what, let's use H for human. Human headers. It's a better way of thinking about it. Human headers. And it goes to the different copies of the web pages and says, oh, that appeared 3 times, that appeared 2 times, etc. So when I look at this, I definitely would say, you know what, guys, we need to look at your content strategy. So it's another info work potentially. Mind you, I'm a big believer in paying it forward. So whenever I do this or after the courses, I might go to them, guys, can I give you some free advice or what can we do to help? Because it is good to pay things forward for sure. Right, amount of content. I digress. Sorry about that. This is the amount of words on a page. And what they've done is gone through your website and they've come up with an average. Now, 447, not too bad, but typically if you try and aim for an average around 800, that's pretty good. The reason being is it's getting higher because Google keeps changing their algorithms over time, but they want to assure that this average amount of words on a page, and again, they go across the whole website to try and figure this out, to show you an authority of what you talk about or you speak about. Now, some people, it's quite hard sometimes to gauge this, right? But a good way of trying to keep that content copy up in terms of the amount of words are creating things like thought pieces or blog articles or I don't know what else, referencing latest pieces. So for WWF, maybe the latest pieces about the environment, their latest monthly report or their latest campaign results, but given a thought piece and a descriptive text around it. So it's more an interesting article. And thin content, the reason why that's not great, so it means it has the lower word content, is Google starts to think that maybe you're not providing informative information to the people searching. It wants you to have content there because people are going to search for new content all the time. They're not necessarily going to search for your website if it's saying the same thing the whole time. Wonder if that makes sense. So when you create content, you want to assure roughly 800 words average, and you want to assure that you're continually updating it. The reason being is because you'll go down the rankings if you don't, because it's assuming if you have stale content that, that you haven't got much to say and people then aren't searching for it. So it's Google's way of rewarding you, saying, keep the content. It means you're a subject matter expert about what you're talking about. That means people are going to want to know about what you're talking about. And because it's staying up to date, people are going to be happy because they get up to date information. So don't always think as a website as a storefront. If you do, you'll go down the rankings. And this used to be an old school thinking. I worked for a majority of, big brands, when they just had it as a storefront. However, it went down the rankings and then they couldn't understand why it wasn't going up SEO or it kept going down. And it's because they wasn't releasing new content or they wasn't adjusting their evergreen content to be relevant and interesting to the audience. Because people with the storefront will probably go once and that's it, and not come back if there's no new content to entice them to come back to you. So they have a big X there. And this, even though they have that, was it A+ on this grade? Let's have a look. Go back up. Even though they had an A+ in this section, I think it was, yeah? If they get their content and content calendar, they can even go up a lot more on the website rankings because they are not creating content in line to how customers are searching for them, and they don't have page content or enough words on their pages or up to date for Google to go reward them and up the page and up the rankings. So putting this in place and having a keyword strategy and content calendar, they can actually appear a lot more elsewhere without people needing to search for them. They can appear on different topics if people didn't know about them. Maybe they don't need to do that because they're such a big organization, they have lots of paid media. But can you imagine with a smaller charity that doesn't have the paid media? They're probably in exactly the same place. And also as well, if WWF actually didn't pay for all the media and they actually just did better organic, wouldn't that be nicer? And the money could go to the animals? This is what I'm thinking anyway. Right. I digress. I should carry on a bit. Image alt attributes. This is another thing, one of my level of improvements to make, because one, I think it helps with inclusivity of all. So an image alternative text is what it means. Old days, when websites were slow to load, the images took a time, so there used to be a text description of that image until the page appeared. The image appeared. Now, if you had that, you'll be told off big time by Google because it takes too long to load. But now it is used to help those that have readers on their website. So the visually impaired that might need a reader to go through the website. And if you think about it, you then want a nice description of those images. You don't want, for example, I'm currently wearing thick glasses. I'm in like a grey t-shirt, kind of slightly mad looking hair. My description of the image, if it was on there for me, it would be like, geeky looking woman with a grey top, looks slightly dishevelled and a bit of a mess, hasn't had enough coffee this morning. You know, you can have a bit of fun with it. The reason being is, maybe not as descriptive as that, is you want it to be inclusive to the visually impaired. So they get a rich experience from the website, and Google rewards you from that. The alt images aren't for keyword stuffing. They aren't, and keywords mean, you know, say if you're animal charity, you wouldn't say Katie Walker, animal charity, you know, promoting it. That would not be a description of me with my glasses looking dishevelled. When it does make sense, you can put a keyword in there, but make sure it's a description of what it portrays. Even emotional elements, just to enrich that experience for the visually impaired or anyone using a reader. And Google goes, you know what? Good guys, you should be doing this. You can go up the rankings. So I like that one. That's one of my favorites. And actually, it's one of those that I've seen the speediest to go up those rankings when you improve things like that. And it's amazing how many people don't do it. But when you want to make that change, it will be a simple thing in the web content management system where there'll be alt tags. But also probably know, if you've not seen before, you have it on social media posts where you can do alt descriptions as well, which I try and do all the time. Right, chronicle tags. Now, this is a bit of a techie thing, but if you have a page where sometimes it has like a question mark after it and then has information, goes blah, 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 blah. Obviously, that's not the right way of saying it. It can look like that information doesn't change sometimes the page structure, or it might just change contents or elements of the page, but to Google, it's still the same one. Now, if you do that, sometimes Google doesn't like it because it goes, oh, you're duplicating a copy again. So you would need to work with your techie to find out what your primary holding page is and how that's all set up. But here, they got a nice tick because they're not doing that. But if you ever see something and it with a question mark and all the information goes on the same page, anything after that, that has an indication that Google, if you didn't have this tick, the chronicle thing, or Google might tell you off for duplicated copy. But do this search and see what it says. 9 times out of 10, if it's a simple website, you might not have that and it won't be too much of an issue. Right. No index tag, well, you're fine. No index just basically means don't index the page or don't follow the page. Now, they haven't got this set up. Why you might have that. Social sites have a no index. That means that you wouldn't index all the different social elements on there because you don't own it. Or say if you had a page where it's not your website and it's an external one, maybe you wouldn't index it. You're saying to Google, that's not yours, so don't go and search it. SSL, this is your secure socket layer, and Google is the main person that made us all have these. So you see where it's got the S after that? That's your security certificate, your HTTPS, that's your security certificate, your secure socket layer is this. There's the S bit on there. And it doesn't like it if you don't have that now. So if you just have HTTP on any page, Google doesn't like it. And you'll get those little messages saying, are you sure this is a trusted site? This is not a secure site. Sure you want to go ahead? And a lot of now, when you have your websites, you can get those certificates for free. But mind out, typically they only validate them for 3 months when they're a free service. So you have to keep renewing them. Robots TX, that is just allowing that robots can search your website. If there's any blocked, sometimes, I don't know, maybe there's some dodgy ones out there, and you do get them, but it doesn't look like you have that here. XML sitemaps. Now, this is nice because this is slightly different to a human sitemap, right? Google likes sitemaps like this because it can easily see the content and see all the different pages on your website. Now, you could have a human form sitemap, but that is not as good to Google as this XML sitemap, right? So have it like there because it's easier from a techie point of view for the Google to understand it. Google Analytics is in place, and they also have a schema structure in place that is telling Google, you know what, this is how it's all structured and put together. So looking at the last little section for the SEO on page is rankings. Now, this is the top keywords that actually drive traffic to your website. So rating number 1 is Amazon's, number 2, Amazon, number 3, Lion, number 4, food. Now, how this is set out, so Amazon's, the country and location that these keywords are primarily coming from, which is England, and this is the position. So this is when you rank against other people or other organizations, shall I say, and other websites that also have Amazon's as a keyword within their content or titles. And for WWF, it's driving the most traffic with 20,400 searches. Sorry, it's driving this many searches, but the actual traffic, i.e. the people that hit your website, is 120,360. So this is the amount of searches it generates. This is the amount of hits it creates to your website. Now, Amazon, so I don't know, like Amazon's rainforest in plural. But this is why I think more as I try and articulate why that might come up. I don't know. It probably must be something in the wording or how it's phrased. But Amazon is another one. So Amazon rainforest could be. But as you know, it's also a big kind of supplier. It used to be books back in the day, didn't it? But supplies a lot of goods now. So that's why that WWF is probably positioned number 46 compared to other organizations. I would assume someone called Amazon, a big company or organization now, might be number 1. However, it's still driving a lot of traffic to their website. But what interests me is, look, the number 1 here. Oh, for Wow Shark. Wow Shark. Is a wow a shark? Let's try this again. Wow Shark is a wow or shark. I think it's because that's how it's phrased. Is a bit strange, isn't it? So from it looks like English language for the United States is number 1 in terms of positioning. So that means that WWF is number 1 in terms of the ranking of this search term here, which is great news. You want that. And it's driving quite a decent amount of hits to the website, 61,000. And this is the amount of searches. Sometimes you might want to convert. So take this divided by this to give you a conversion rate. Because if your searches are extremely high, but you're not getting enough then hits from that, then the keywords or your website is not resonating with the audience of what you're talking about. So you would want to change things a bit. But this looks a pretty good conversion rate. So I would say, actually, I'd look at this. So let's go and have a look at what this means. Because how it's phrased, wow shark is a wow or shark. It's quite topical, right? Like people are interested. It means, topical means that they're talking about things that interest them. But actually, in this instance, it's not directly related to the conservation of the animals, is it? Just go and have a look and see when we put it in search, because you see it should be number 1, how it ranks. Just go and have a look. And it does, WWF.org. And this is like a snippet that they create. You know, it dynamically creates on your Google title and content. Whale sharks are not whales, they are sharks. Although these huge sea creatures are called whale sharks, they are not actually whales, but filter feeding sharks, often referred to as gentle giants. So 5 interesting facts about whale sharks. Now, good on actually WWF, because they're getting a lot of conversions from this. A lot of people then going onto their website. So this to me might indicate that they have an audience for education. They have, maybe it's younger children, maybe it's just people just genuinely interested, which is a good way to use content to maybe even diversify into a different audience or a different segment to get more awareness. So, in other words, the original people weren't going, I want to know how to save animals, or searching for that, which is a lovely thing to search for, but they weren't initially doing that. They were searching for informational facts about animals. And with WWF as conservation about these animals and the environment that they're in, sharks and animal. Oh God, I'm useless at this, aren't I? Then having content that those people are interested in is a great way to get awareness themselves. So good on them. They did really well there. Right, let's turn this off. So they're doing number 1, and they have 201,000 searches and 61,104 visits to that website. And again, if you wanted to check the conversion, so maybe the conversion actually is a little bit lower here when they're searching Amazon, and maybe they wanted Amazon books, because that's the traffic is 78,120. So that people that actually hit your site versus 37 million. So just Amazon by itself is not helping. So it's basically there's other traffic or other searches going to Amazon bookstore or things like that. However, you're position 46, so I won't worry too much at the moment, and it is driving enough traffic. But I would then look at the content of my pages and see how I can create some more of these ones, because this is really good ranking. SEO is not a science. Well, SEO is it's kind of a little bit of science as it's experimental, right? You don't actually know your results, and you kind of got to play that with the recipe a little bit to get what works for you. And you have to change it over time based on people's different interests in the way that they search. So maybe back in the day, just Amazon itself was fine for them. But now with the Amazon bookstore, which has been around for a while, as we know, but maybe with that growing as like the number 1 popularity, they've kind of impacted their traffic that they get to their site. And so they actually have to update their information on their website and provide more interesting articles that people want to search for. So this educational piece is a really good one. I digress a bit. This doesn't tell you much. This is the monthly traffic volume. It's great. It's high, right? It's basically saying they have over 9 million traffic. So it's a very popular website. So it's very good, a big green light. We know that they have an overall really good rating. However, they can always improve. And they can always, for me, when I look at this, I think it will be to drive more awareness with people that aren't necessarily aware of their good efforts, to get the younger generation as interested about what animals are, or educational pieces, or the events and the fundraising. There's loads of different angles they can take. Or even, because I'm a big animal advocate, maybe they can talk about events about fundraising which are alternatives to other things, like helping for fundraising to help with cancer, and alternatives for that, like maybe a more human relatable experiment or things like that. I already work for a foundation that looks for alternatives to animal experiments, and it's a charity, and maybe they can connect with them and help kind of with that event and fundraising there. Right. At the moment, they're at position 31 to 100. What this just means is the amount of keywords over on their website, typically on a page, they're positioned from 31 to 100. That means that other companies are higher up on the rankings of the keywords that they're using. So, like Amazon, that's going to get like number 1. But they're about, on average, around 31 to 100 compared to all the other organizations. So they're not getting enough of the share of the space on the keywords that is in their content. This to me is again thinking if they revisit their keywords and look at different things, they can improve even better awareness, maybe for a different segment group. So what they really want is to be more up here. Okay, so I definitely think wwf.org.uk could look at a content strategy that should definitely improve awareness and drive more donations predominantly. So that could be a good move. Let's just have a bit of a quick recap. So it's quick. quite clear. And again, I'll be putting things in the handout notes, just so you have a nice, easy, relatable reference to everything. So at A+, they're doing really well in their titles, what Google searches for, meta description of the page. Again, Google uses that snippet. That's how it's displayed. Language and everything's there. They have nice headers in place, so your human headers in place on the page. Keyword consistency, they're saying not great. However, these keywords don't necessarily align with what they want to say or what I believe they would want to say. So maybe you would look at a content strategy and their keywords that connect with that content. But the key areas that they can improve is the amount of content they have. Again, aligns to the thought that they might need a content strategy in place, aligned to how customers search for them. And another one, that if you improve now, outside that, so within their web content management system, actually would improve their ranking straight away, I believe, anyway, is the image alt attribute. So 8 out of 20 are missing them. And just putting those things in can easily help you go up the rankings quite quickly. And an alternative text is a description of an image. And ensure that you can put in emotions or things like that just to make it a rich experience. But this will be the number of things I would say that they can actually improve, and you never know, get them an A++. And that was it. Everything else was in place in terms of how Google searches for things. So they did pretty well in this section.